On this week's episode of the Cedar Log, Reese sits down with Mr. Cless, the current lodge advisor of Unami Lodge. Before we get into this episode of the Cedar Log, we would like to apologize for the background noise as this was recorded on the bus to NOAC.
Okay, so I have Mr. Cless here with me. Well, Craig Cless. I can call him that now. I'm old enough. How you doing, Mr. Cless?
I'm doing really good. How about you, Reese?
I'm doing good, thank you. So, tell me about your scouting journey. How did you first get into scouting?
It was a long time ago, and my mom and dad thought that it would be a good idea for me to be in Cub Scouts. So I joined the Cub Scouts many years ago. In fact, I think I found my card, and I want to say it was would have been the late 70s that I joined, and I enjoyed the Cub Scouts. At that time, we didn't have lions, we didn't have tigers. You know, we just had the regular Cub Scouts, right? And had a lot of friends that I still talk to today that really made my scouting career what it was. And I ended up joining a troop in New Bloomfield, Pennsylvania, is where I grew up. And I had a great bunch of friends there who kept me going and got me through to my Eagle. And I joined the OA, and that was when my OA, the whole idea of Native American culture had really kind of thrived in me. I ended up on the dance team. We did a bunch of dancing and drumming and so forth, and it was a little more, I'll say, a little less structured than it is today, but we learned a lot, and I used a lot of that in bringing back some of that tradition here. So Mike Comfort has helped me a lot. Right, and then we started talking to other people in the area, and so yeah, I love the OA. I love scouting and trying to keep the leaders of tomorrow here to allow them to keep this thing going. And you can hear them in the background now singing a song.
Yeah, so we can hear him in the background. That's kind of the whole ambiance of this. It's trying to show that we're collecting oral history on the go. But so you joined scouting as a Cub Scout. You went through the Eagle Scout. So how did you end up as the lodge advisor? How did that happen?
Well, I talked with our staff advisor one day. They were talking about different people that they had thought about asking to be lodge advisor. And funny story is, while I was with our troop, Reese, you and your troop, with 367, Jerry Shell, he said, hey, you should get back into the OA, right? So I did that, and Jerry really pushed me to do that, and I enjoyed it and became chapter advisor and basically got chosen to go on the 2015 NOAC, and that really engaged me and got me excited and inspired about the OA. So I just kept doing my chapter advisor job, helping when I could, and then I spoke with John Bickle, our staff advisor, and said, hey, you know, at some point I'd like to do that, not sure when, and you know, it was coming up one time for Dennis, and they were trying to see if it made sense to transition, and I happened to be the one of the people that they had mentioned, and I didn't take a step backwards like the other ones. No, I'm joking, but I stepped up and really wanted to help, and that's why I want to help the lodge become the best lodge it can, and that's really why I'm here. And John recognized that, and I think one of the things that I enjoy most is seeing all of you guys grow. I remember taking you when you were just joining, and we were going to all these different events and all the elections, and seeing you grow from that little kid, that little scout, you know, and to where you are now, and just makes me really proud about what you've done and what the whole lodge has done. So
Thank you. That makes sense. So what's your vision for the lodge then? What do you hope the lodge will take away from your term as the advisor?
Wow, that's a tough one. I mean, ultimately, what my vision is what the youth want. I think one of the things that I said, you know, when I did my first introduction speech was that I'm here to help the lodge grow to be the best it can. And I think Patrick and I have really been worked well together, and I look forward to continuing this year. And it's really about trying to keep those traditions, right? In our obligation, we're supposed to observe and preserve the traditions, and I think that's one of the things that I like to maintain, and then just to have fun, right? And try to get the leaders to help observe and preserve those traditions. And the other one is just service, right? I've always given service, and so I think one of the legacies is to keep those committees moving. One example is the Hart ceremonial grounds, right? Austin Grover did a great job there, and I think I was able to help him grow that committee and give lots of hours to help do it. So that's my legacy there.
Gotcha. Okay. And then kind of turning back to the wheels of time a little bit, what was your ordeal experience like?
Wow, that's awesome. So I remember my ordeal. We went up to this was at, I was actually part of Susquehannock Lodge XI. It was Lodge 11. And we went up to a campsite called Frontier, which is way up on the top of a ridge at Camp Hidden Valley outside of Louisville, Pennsylvania. And I remember they gave us an egg and they gave us a cup. It was like a wax cup, right? And they said, "Here, you're just going to sit here, build yourself a fire, and you're gonna take your night out." And so we actually all built our own fires. We were all probably, I don't know, 25 yards apart. And I built my fire, and I did a lot of thinking. And I woke up the next morning and had my egg in the morning. I cooked it in the wax cup, and didn't melt it. I was surprised, so I learned some lesson there with the water. And my next door neighbor had put a sandstone. This is the funny part of it. Had put a sandstone in this fire, and that sandstone blew up in the middle of the night because it was in the fire, right? And the moisture popped, and it burned a hole right through his sleeping bag, right between his legs. So he woke up and he held up his sleeping bag, and there was a hole right below his legs. So it was a funny story. I remember doing lots of work, and I remember seeing ceremonialists and the torchbearers, and that's what spurred that fire for me to get into that Native American theme, and I've been doing it ever since.
Excellent. So then, what keeps you in the OA now?
Well, the big thing that keeps me in the OA right now, Reese, is the light bulb that I see go on in you guys' heads. So when I see the youth who understand and really deeply understand what a brotherhood of cheerful service is, to me, and I still get goosebumps over it, this past conclave where we had a fire that made a big fire after the end campfire, and we went back to our own site and just our lodge. So I mean, it was brotherhood within our lodge, but everybody was singing and having a good time, and I pulled the officers back. I took them about 10 steps back, and I looked at them, and I looked at everybody at the fire, and I said, "This is the OA. Never forget this." And I've still got my hair just stood up my arms. That's what it is to be able to give that brotherhood and that fellowship back to everybody, and to be able to then turn that into the leadership of the future. That's really what keeps me going, to see that light bulb turn on in the youth's head.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for your time, Mr. Cless, and thank you for your stories.
Thank you, Reese. Have a good NOAC.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Cedar Log. Please feel free to follow us on our social medias, and if you have any part of scouting history, please reach out to us at historycommittee@unamilodge.org. We would love to hear your little part of scouting history. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.